What you're about to see is true. The events have been recreated because through the passage of time, this has become one of the forgotten stories of sports. 11 national championships, 7 Heisman Trophy winners. The USC Trojans are a college football dynasty. Daily Trojan reporter Ben Malcolmson, a modern-day George Plimpton, decided to cover the team's tryout by trying out himself.
The light bulb went off, and I was like, wow, that would be a pretty cool story.
But the scrawny 170-pound writer who hadn't put on the pads since the 5th grade would be taking on the toughest football players in the land.
You scared?
But to everyone's surprise, Ben's quest for a good story became the last thing he expected.
He had something special about him. We just couldn't quite tell what it was at the time.
A spot on the team.
I don't think in his wildest dreams he imagined that it was going to turn out the way it did.
Suddenly, the Cub reporter had become the story.
My first reaction was, better check the calendar and find out if this is April Fool's Day.
But would this walk-on wonder ever get a chance to actually play? Next on Amazing Sports Stories, the true story of Ben Malcolmson, The Right Stuff. The glorious moments of USC football would take many hours to recount. The storied program can claim a multitude of honors, including the most alumni ever to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It is a program with an aura of victory.
Back in the 70s, USC was the biggest thing going in terms of college football. So much success with the Rose Bowls, national championships here in Southern California. But there was a period through the 80s and the 90s where that had disappeared. Obviously, in the last 6 or 7 years under Pete Carroll, it's revived and it's surpassed anything that it was before.
I think the last 7 years, we've probably won as much as anybody's ever won in college football. And we've done that for a number of reasons. And one of the big reasons is the caliber of players because of the way we recruit.
There is no pro football in Los Angeles, so the college football players here have that kind of status.
It's such a huge part of the culture. I didn't come to SC because of the football team, but once you step on the campus and once that fall semester begins, you get indoctrinated very quickly, and it's all about football for several weeks of your life.
But Ben Malcolmson of Highland Park, Texas, enrolled at USC for the academics, not for the football.
I had no connection with SC at all. So I'm from Texas. All I cared about were Texas schools. The only thing I've seen of California was in movies, and so California's like this dream place.
He was clearly very young when I first met him. He was 17, kind of an awkward kid, a little naive. I could tell his first year at school was really kind of a culture shock to him.
Like most freshmen in college, Ben was struggling for what direction to take. He ended up becoming a journalist, and he actually started writing for the Daily Trojan.
He would come out to the practice field every day, just like the beat writers that were out there. You could tell he was a good listener, asked good pointed questions from very early on. It became clear that he might have a future in this business.
He was always a good guy, was easy to work with, easy to talk to, and had an edge to him that was, just trying to find the truth and stuff, so we got along fine.
Ben was always on the lookout for a good story and often immersed himself in the task. He once shadowed Coach Carroll during a 14-hour workday and joined the women's cross-country team for a grueling run.
He's a very capable writer, and he coupled that with an ability to try to take an unusual topic, experience that topic, and then write about that experience.
In the spring of 2006, his senior year, the Cub reporter found the perfect lead.
I saw this ad. It said tryouts for the 2006 football team are happening next month. The light bulb went off, and I was like, wow, that would be a pretty cool story.
It was matter of fact. Clearly, it wasn't aspirational. My thoughts initially were George Plimpton, Paper Lion, the classic story that everyone of my generation is very familiar with.
George Plimpton and participatory journalism kind of got going there in terms of sports, and what Ben was doing was kind of a continuation of that.
The last time I played was 5th grade. I hated it with a passion. Just hated playing football because I hated getting beat up. But I'm just doing it for the story, so why not just go out and have some fun?
It may be easy to walk on to a USC tryout.
Go, 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 go!
But it's a lot more difficult to walk off after one.
You go through cone drills and 40-yard dashes and catching passes and all that, and the coaches are right there yelling at you, so that was the coolest thing.
Any student can try out, but few have the skills to survive the mental and physical tests conducted under the watchful eyes of USC coaches.
You got to win in transition. You understand me?
Yes, sir.
You have these coaches that you admire and that you look up to, and they're yelling at you, telling you what to do, what not to do.
Quit shaking.
And if a guy can show a couple sparks in there, we're really open-minded about letting guys have a chance. There's guys falling out and falling down and pulling hammies left and right. And it's not to try to just break them down, it's just to try to see if they can operate on the level that we need them to operate at.
There's 40 other people there that are trying to make the team. I was the only one there not trying to make the team. Halfway through, and I was ready to quit right there. I couldn't take it anymore. I was exhausted.
The bottom line is, at the tryout, he performed.
He did all right. He caught the ball well, and he's pretty smooth as an athlete. He ran all right. He ran a pretty good time. He actually was one of the best guys out there.
I thought it was one of the best stories I've ever had. I mean, I just went 2 hours with the USC football coaches. Spine tingling. It was really special to be a part of that.
The article would wait till morning, while an exhausted Malcolmson returned home to a fraternity house full of excited friends.
My friends were like, "How was the tryouts?" Giving me a hard time because I'm a skinny little guy trying out for the USC football team.
It was very like, no, I'm not going to make this team. You don't realize how good these players are.
There were no expectations. I was just out there to get facts for a story and write it up that night. And then some of them started going, well, what if you actually make it? They were joking around, obviously. But there's that little thought after they start planning that in your head. You're like, well, what if I actually do make it? The next morning, I got a call. This was a good friend of mine. Hello? Hey, how's it going? Saying, did you try out for the football team?
A friend alerted Ben that the list had been posted.
I'm going over there right now.
Ben raced to Heritage Hall to see the list for himself. He wondered who had made the cut. Sure that he hadn't. It seemed Ben Malcolmson had done the impossible, earn a spot on USC's football team. But was it just a prank pulled on him by his frat brothers, or even Coach Carroll himself? After all, could a scrawny kid like Ben, who last played football in the 5th grade, actually make the USC team? Ben Malcolmson still couldn't believe it. The Daily Trojan sports reporter had tried out for the USC football team looking for a fresh angle on an old story. Instead, he shocked them all when he made the roster. But was this just an elaborate prank? How could a skinny kid who hadn't played since the 5th grade hack it among the hardest hitters in the land?
There was the list of 9 people who made the team, and I ran through it, and I was like, that's my name right there. And so I ran through it again, still saw my name, ran through it again. I probably ran through it 10 times looking at that sheet, just making sure that my name was right there. And it was. I made the team. And then right then, it just hit me. I couldn't breathe. I was just in shock.
My first reaction was, better check the calendar and find out if this is April Fool's Day, because there's just no possibility, from my perspective, that he made the team.
My dad didn't believe me for a week.
I said, Ben, are you absolutely sure, or is Coach Carroll playing a joke on you?
And I'd known him for a few years covering the team, and I thought he'd be a good prankster and pull that joke.
Ben's first stop of the day was Coach Carroll's office to see if this was for real.
I told him I didn't do this to write a story in the newspaper, and then I expected him to compete and battle and do like everybody else. But he was pumped up and eager just like any other kid would be. You know, he was really excited about the chance of playing football with us.
It was no prank after all. The reporter had made the team. But it wasn't that simple for Malcolmson. He was a senior, due to graduate that spring, and he was already weighing several job offers.
There were great opportunities for Ben at the time.
He had done an internship at the Dallas Morning News, his hometown paper, and it was his dream to work there.
I called my mom, hey, and I told her I don't know what to do. I was set to graduate in 2 months, move on, get a job. She's like, well, you got to do it.
With his mother's encouragement, Ben agreed that the offer was too good to pass up.
It was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and that was something that I remember we did talk about.
I just decided, well, I've got to make the most of this. Applied to grad school, got into grad school. That was that. I was on the team.
In the transition from writer to player, there would be plenty to learn.
You're getting the USC helmet, you're putting pads on. That was an experience because I didn't know how to put pads on. So I looked to the guy to my right, I looked to the guy to my left, and see how they put their pads on, how they like buckle them up and everything. That's when I got nervous. That's when it started to hit me. 2 days until I start getting hit. 1 day until I start getting hit. 3 hours until I start getting hit.
It clearly was frightening.
Ben had survived the tryout, but had this skinny 170-pound rider bitten off more than he could chew, risking serious injury against some of the hardest-hitting players in the nation?
When I think of the size of the USC linebackers, I would always kid Ben, please don't run any pass routes across the middle because I fear for your safety. And beyond your safety, I fear for your life.
I didn't know what to expect at all because you're going to be hit harder than you've ever been hit. My first hit, my chin strap got broken off. Just hit me like right in the chin. The chin strap exploded.
For years, I've held the guys that do walk onto the program in high regard. They're paying their way, and they're out here busting their tails with a bunch of guys that have come up a different way through their football careers. But they're expected to do what everybody else does.
On the days that you're not practicing, you're working out in the weight room for about 2 hours every day. Those are killer. Pumping iron like you've never pumped iron before.
Working out with a football team and taking like real football hits really took a toll on him. He'd come home and he would just be completely exhausted.
Suddenly, life on campus was very different for the Trojans' unlikely walk-on. No longer the faceless reporter, Ben had captured the attention of the entire campus. But he didn't quite relish his new celebrity.
The word started spreading. People were just in awe. They couldn't believe it either.
You just look at them differently when they're on the football team. It's a completely like celebrity atmosphere.
You're not introduced as, here's Ben, it's, here's Ben, he's on the football team. It definitely changes the way people see you. I wanted to just be Ben, but it goes along with the territory.
As a walk-on, the ex-reporter, who never wanted to play, was now working overtime to make the cut.
It was all new to me. The physical side of it was hard, obviously, but the mental side of it was probably harder. Learning the plays and learning the terminology and just staying on top of that stuff. I was out there fighting. I knew that spring practice was almost over, and they always make cuts at the end of spring practice. So I knew I only had a few more chances to make my mark.
The honor student was making progress. As his abilities grew, so too did his hopes for the upcoming season.
These guys, they're out here because they want to play. They want to get on the game field, and they all want to score touchdowns and make big plays and all that, and they dream just like everybody else.
So I'm slowly getting the physical side, slowly getting the mental side. Out there fighting, and I'm blocking a cornerback.
In an instant, Ben suffered a devastating injury, a dislocated shoulder.
I felt so bad, he got hit and hit the ground, and landed on it wrong.
That was heartbreaking. I started to believe that I could make this, and it was just like snap of the fingers, that dream just gets shattered.
Doctors delivered the grim news. Surgery followed by months of rehab.
The doctor said I would be out for 9 months. So 9 months from then would put me right after the bowl game, which means my season's over.
He became real despondent. He really was looking forward to being associated with the team.
We were all kind of curious, like, is he going to stay around? Is he going to stick with this?
Yeah, sure. I wanted to be healthy again, but really I just wanted to be on the team again.
After achieving a remarkable feat, Ben Malcolmson was dealt a crushing blow. Could Ben somehow prove the doctors wrong? Or would the walk-on give up and walk out? Reporter Ben Malcolmson suddenly found himself in the spotlight, a walk-on with USC's powerful football team. But his dream of making it onto the field for an actual game took a devastating blow when he suffered a painful injury. He now faced 9 months of intensive rehabilitation on his dislocated shoulder and a tough decision: stick with the team or set out for post-college life.
What everybody questioned Ben about, why would you go through the extent of the rehabilitation that you have to go through in order to just get back and be on the scout team for maybe a month or two?
I can either just wallow in this injury and sort of pity myself and just enjoy the 3 weeks I had on the team, or I could fight back from this.
He easily could have hung him up and said, nah, I'm just going to get well and forget about it. But he was determined, maybe more than ever, to show that he belonged.
Ben was now focused on living up to the words of sports writer Owen Bird, who in 1912 had nicknamed the team the Trojans, because, as he wrote, no matter the situation, the odds, or the conditions, the competition must be carried on to the end, and those who strive must give all they have and never be weary in doing so.
He was on a mission.
He was definitely going to rehab all the time.
And he was going to get back.
What was really inspirational to a lot of us, especially to me, was that even as a walk-on, he stuck with it, and a lot of people definitely wouldn't have. That was really amazing to a lot of us.
Ben was racing against the clock. He was determined to return to the team before the end of the season. The transformation from writer to player was now complete.
He really, really believed in getting back as quickly as possible.
To everyone's shock, Ben returned to practice a mere 4 months after his injury.
That was the biggest victory right there. It was like, well, I can do anything I put my mind to.
But the real surprise came as the campus and community responded to the news of his recovery.
He represented the average student on campus.
The story became bigger than me. It became everyone, and everyone saw hope in it.
Grade school girls that played volleyball and said, you know, I was thinking about giving up, but now I'm going to keep trying because I heard your story. Or the soldiers from Iraq that were grappling with all of their daily challenges and heard about Ben's story, and they said, this is the story of why America is great.
But though it was a stirring story, Ben's recovery came with only 3 games remaining in the season. As a walk-on, his chances of playing were already slim. Now, they were remote.
I sort of resigned to just putting on that jersey every Saturday for home games and practicing my butt off on Monday through Friday. That's really all I wanted from the experience.
But his friends had higher hopes.
I had a couple of really good friends who thought that it would be cool if they started a little campaign, Get Ben In, to sort of support me and push the whole campus to get involved.
Get Ben In was the battle cry that we heard over and over again.
We put up hundreds of flyers like on campus, like all over the place.
They made T-shirts and posters and signs.
Everywhere we could place a flyer, we put it. I think we actually made the university kind of mad at us for a little while.
Even Coach Carroll was pulling for him and looking for the right opportunity.
It's always something that we're hoping to do. So when you have an opportunity to present that for the guys, you know, I jump at it.
Unfortunately for Ben, the next 2 games presented no opportunity to play. Arch-rival Notre Dame was USC's final opponent of the year, and Ben's last chance to play for the Trojans.
I got up in the morning at the hotel and was watching the television, and I saw a big sign, and it said, Get Ben In, with a big photo of Ben on it. I'm thinking, this is remarkable.
It was so cool how people rallied behind me.
92,000 people, and all very feverish because it was the Notre Dame game, but it was spine-tingling.
If I could have just taken that as my lasting memory, that would have been the best thing ever. This was my last chance. It was senior night at the Coliseum.
We were asked as a group of parents to come out on the field and form a gauntlet for the players to run through. And, of course, the first name they mentioned,
Malcolmson!
He comes running through like Traveler the horse, and he ran through the gauntlet. I look up on the Jumbotron, and there it is. It says Ben Malcolmson from Highland Park, Texas. And I went, oh my gosh. Many people tell me I'd give my left arm to have that experience. And I go, wow, it really is that big a deal.
The Notre Dame game couldn't have been a more storied way to end.
After all, Notre Dame's Rudy Rudiger's walk-on story had inspired a feature film, Rudy.
Almost like it was divine intervention.
We were up 2 scores, and I remember that Notre Dame had tried to onside kick the ball.
The Trojans have not only got it, they're going to take off for the end zone, and here comes Brian Cushing. Touchdown!
The score then got to a point where there was a sufficient spread that the coaches felt comfortable in putting Ben in the game.
Finally, 8 months of sweat, pain, and dedication paid off for Ben Malcolmson.
It was an out-of-body experience for sure. Coach said, "Benny, you're in."
We saw him running out there, and we said, oh my gosh, he's actually going to get into the game.
It was just an awesome experience. I definitely went nuts.
Even though it was only like 10 seconds of me on the field on that play, it meant so much to me for all the work that I put in, all the challenges I'd overcome, but also for the people who had started to support me. And it was just not only my friends, it was so many people around campus, people in class, people I didn't even know.
What a remarkable experience. And I think that's what Ben kind of lived for.
Though he was only on the field for one play, Ben accomplished something few could ever imagine.
That dream that everyone has to what would it be like to be out there and be a part of it, he got to live it.
For Ben to be able to do that was something that I think really proved to him that I can do something extraordinary in my life.
It is very special for these guys to be able to hang in this program. It's a very unique program. That's a lifelong memory for those guys to make it through because of their will and their toughness and their desire and the way they dream. It's a beautiful thing sometimes.
It's just surreal. It was unbelievable. It seems like only stuff that happens in movies. It's one of the highest moments of my life, without a doubt.